Heading into the weekend, Tron Ares was projected to gross 80 to 90 million at the worldwide box office, 45 to 50 million of which were scheduled to come from the domestic box office. But that was before anyone actually saw the movie, and word of mouth caused the actual box office to fall far short of that. Let's see what went wrong. This video is sponsored by Black Forest Supplements. The Hollywood trades exist in symbiosis with the studios, which gives them an inherent conflict of interest, as they're supposed to act as the studio's mouthpiece while also do some actual journalism. But the closer the ties between the studio and the trade, the bigger the conflict, and the bigger the chance the trade will run cover for the studio rather than do objective coverage. Such is the case with Deadline Hollywood and Disney, so in their Saturday write-up for Tron Aries, Deadline Hollywood went above and beyond the call of duty, opening their piece with, "The impact of COVID thwarting moviegoing is easily felt this weekend."
You serious?
As two movies, one a $180 million sci-fi franchise reboot in Tron Ares, and the other a star-studded caper with a hunky leading man, are coming in under their estimates. Yes, conveniently ignore that Disney had a $1 billion hit with Lilo and Stitch earlier this year, and especially ignore how last year's Deadpool and Wolverine performed like an Avengers movie with an R rating. That was then, but Tron Ares came in below expectations now. So Deadline Hollywood needs you to forget about what has been, and instead get back into the lockdown mindset of half a decade ago, where movies got a free pass for underperforming big time. They need you to have that public health under threat mindset, because without it, they'd have to look for other reasons for why the movie is doing this badly. And Disney doesn't want the trades to look too closely at that, because that would make them look bad. We, of course, are about to do just that presently, but before we do, and on the topic of health, let's take a moment to talk about stem cells, the repair crews in your body that fix whatever needs fixing, and which Joe Rogan knows a little something about.
I had a full-length rotator cuff tear, and the UFC gave me a doctor in Los Angeles, and he looks at my MRI and goes, "You're going to need surgery." I go, 100%? He goes, "I don't know how you're using it now. It's a matter of time. You're going to need surgery, so it might be better to do it now." So I got it shot up with stem cells. And this was the early days of stem cells in America, where you could get away with more. That you got to go to Mexico now again.
That sounds pretty impressive, but alas, most stem cell therapies are illegal in the US, not because they don't work, but apparently because they work so well that it just might interfere with big pharma's profits. As such, the rich and famous go abroad for their stem cell injections, paying upwards of $50,000 per dose. That's not for everyone though, so luckily there is a natural way to support and boost your own stem cell activity. And that would be through high flavanol cocoa, which Harvard scientist Dr. William Lee backs up.
So, studies have been done to show that the flavanols in cocoa stimulate stem cells to come out of your bone marrow like bees in a beehive in your bloodstream, and they go out and they find wherever it needs to be repaired. If it's in your heart, they'll fix it. If it's in your liver, they'll fix it. If it's in your skin, they'll fix it.
So, flavanols are the good stuff found in chocolate beans, but alas, regular chocolate doesn't help much, as the flavanols are destroyed in the regular chocolate making process. That's where Black Forest Supplements come in, as they've created the first ever high flavanol cocoa powder, packed with everything your body actually needs, and it's only 20 calories. You can even mix it in your coffee or protein shake, and it's still stem cell fuel, increasing your natural stem cell circulation by over 100%. For the next 48 hours, you can buy one, get one for free. That's only for the next 48 hours though, so get yours now. Link is in the description and pinned comment. With that, let's get back to what went wrong with Tron Ares. Let's begin with returning to the spin from Deadline Hollywood, who continued their Saturday update in which opening weekend projections were revised down by 10 million to 35-ish million, writing for Tron Ares. It's a start that's under the previous installment, Tron Legacy, which opened to 44 million 15 years ago. Potential moviegoers are fiercely making the decision not to go, meaning there's no fear of missing out. This is what moviegoing has become. When it's undeniable, there's a flood. When it's meh, whatever. People weigh their wallets, and if it seems like it's worth waiting at home for, they'll wait. Indeed, in this age of streaming that Hollywood stupidly wrought onto themselves, audiences are more discerning, because they've learned that the more they sit any given movie out, the shorter the wait for it to hit streaming. So the movie has to be something really special to make anyone bother going to the theater. Case in point, by Sunday, the opening weekend estimates had sunk even further, down to 33.5 million, and the final tally may well fall short of even that. And remember, domestic estimates were 45 to 50 million just a few days ago, and even if it had reached that, it wouldn't have been good enough because of the high production cost. We won't know the weekend actuals for another day or two, but we don't need them to say that this whole range is in disaster territory. The movie has a listed budget in the $180 to $200 million vicinity and tepid word of mouth, which the projections having to be revised ever downwards proves. In short, an opening like this is a disaster, and the movie is heading for massive flop territory. Since the secondary markets that eventually made the original Tron a cult classic were sacrificed on the altar of streaming, there will be no second life here. Tron Ares is done for and destined to be the biggest flop of the franchise. So, like both Tron Legacy and the original Tron before it, Tron Ares took a big swing and missed. Only it missed even worse. To it, Deadline Hollywood gives a brief history lesson, writing, "The original Tron was a bomb at the summer box office back in 1982, grossing around 29 million in a season dominated by E.T., which made north of 359 million in its first go-round by comparison. However, the guy getting stuck in a video game movie found a following in its home afterlife, which led to its 2010 reboot." Well, there is a little bit more to it. You see, Disney were in an experimental gambly stage at the time, looking for their next big franchise. A search that resulted in big-budget would-be franchise starters like John Carter, The Lone Ranger, and Prince of Persia. But while it's true that nigh on 3 decades worth of strong physical media sales were a necessary prerequisite for Tron Legacy being released in the same breath as those, and the original Tron did have a cult following, its status in popular culture was already in a significant state of decline, as the brand had been dormant for decades prior to Tron Legacy. Deadline Hollywood are evidently not aware of this, for they continue. Funny thing is that Tron Legacy, in all its Disney brand awareness, opened a year after the original Avatar, and in and of itself, at the time as a Christmas tentpole, was also underwhelming with the 44 million opening. There's a cap here too in the popularity of Tron, which explains why Disney didn't just rush another movie out soon after the previous one. They took their time in hopes of one-upping the last. That's not happening. The fact of the matter, though, is that given the dormant status of the Tron brand, Tron Legacy actually performed pretty good, all things considered. But let's be clear about why Disney put Tron back into dormancy after Legacy. As I alluded to earlier, when Tron Legacy was greenlit, they were looking for their next big thing. By the time the movie was ready for release, however, they had found their next big thing, and it was Marvel. As such, there was no corporate need to spend any more money on Tron, even though it might have been worth their while if they did. It is in a sense a shame that they didn't, because that effectively meant that they let all the hype and interest that was generated by Tron Legacy go to waste. And obviously, they were not able to rekindle that interest now 15 years later with Tron Ares. Let's explore why they weren't. There's basically two different categories of problems here, one of which are with the marketing and sales pitch to the audience, which explains why there was so little hype and excitement leading up to the movie's release, and the other category of problems have to do with the movie itself, which explains that ever fewer and fewer went to see it once word of mouth got out. We briefly touched on the first category of problems already, that is, the problems with the sales pitch to the audience, but let's explore it a bit further. One issue is the Tron brand itself is not the strong one. Sure, there's been a few games over the decades, and there's been an animated special or three, but really, there's only two past Tron incarnations that have been seen by a large swath of the populace. And that would be Tron Legacy, which came out 15 years ago, and the original Tron, which came out in 1982, when computers were something new and mind-blowing. Things aren't quite like that anymore, which makes the whole concept of a world inside a computer a tougher sell today than when the original came out. Tron Legacy was able to work around this when it came out. Its aesthetic was a natural evolution of what had come before, and with the inclusion of Daft Punk, audiences were promised an immersive and unique audiovisual experience that would be a thrill all on its own, no matter the hokiness of the concept or what one felt about the original, if one even had seen it. You were in for an audiovisual feast that had to be experienced on the big screen. And in my personal opinion, Tron Legacy had the best 3D presentation ever put on film. By contrast, what did the marketing for Ares promise the audience? Well, there was the color red as the recurring theme, itself a major breach from the aesthetic of the previous movies. Also, unlike the previous movies, the marketing promised that the story would be grounded to our world and not Tron world, and lest we forget, the audience was also promised lots and lots of Jared Leto. They are evidently big fans of his inside the Hollywood bubble, yet his past output consistently demonstrates that Leto shines as the supporting lead in original movies and awards fare, like Dallas Buyers Club, in which he was fantastic. But when placed as the lead of a genre movie, he is certified box office poison. Never mind his cult side gig, his band, whose bland music is not everyone's cup of tea, or the various accusations the likes of James Gunn likes to throw at him. To fans of genre movies, Jared Leto is synonymous with the worst Joker as well as Morbius, and he has an overall tiresome shtick, which is hardly a draw. All of that kept potential audiences from checking the movie out before any reviews or word of mouth dropped. And as it turned out, those that went to see the movie anyway, despite this lacking sales pitch, found plenty to dislike with the movie itself. While developing the movie, Disney were considering two very different scripts, representing two possible directions. One of these was more like the previous movies, with more of the story taking place inside the computer world, while the other was slightly cheaper in that it mostly took place in our world and it was female-led. This was the direction Disney went for, and as it turned out, it was the wrong one. First of all, it means that the movie is led by Ray 2.0, played by Greta Lee, and due to a combination of a lackluster script and perhaps not the best of direction, she is a completely uninteresting block of wood. She's in good company though, because the other leads, from Jared Leto to Evan Peters to Gillian Anderson, are blocks of wood as well. The original Tron was able to get by the absurdity of its own story by computers being so new at the time, while Tron Legacy got by going all in, adding a philosophical element to it. Tron Ares, by contrast, reminds us constantly of how absurd the concept is by taking mostly place in the real world, which even makes the wannabe Blade Runner philosophical underpinnings fall completely flat on their face. Also, seeing the motorcycles leave that laser trail of death behind them in computer world is one thing. Seeing that in the real world, with a beam that can't quite decide if it's dangerous or not, is quite another. On top of that, there is the music. Daft Punk is very much so part of why Tron Legacy is as successful as it was, as their score was an intrinsic part of that movie, as big part of the world as anything we actually saw on screen. Where the Tron franchise is concerned, they set a new standard and left some very big shoes to fill. And Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, as much as I like 9 Inch Nails, were simply the wrong fit to fill those shoes. And that's really the problem here, because it wasn't just 9 Inch Nails. Everything here was the wrong fit. The movie suffered under having the wrong story, wrong script, wrong execution, wrong cast, wrong score, and it all came out at the wrong time. There was a time for a sequel to Tron Legacy, but that time has come and gone. And due to being mismanaged as badly as it has by Disney, maybe the time has gone for the Tron franchise as a whole as well. There are 2 great Tron movies, and maybe that is good enough. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments, and before you go, remember to stock up on cocoa flavanols from Black Forest Supplements. For the next 48 hours, you can buy one and get one for free. That's only for the next 48 hours though, so get it now. Link is in the description and pinned comment.